Pleasant good morning to everyone, and welcome once again to another edition of the Coles Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Coming up on today's show, guest menu looks like this. He joins us after a week off. Coach Van Pettaway, former men's basketball coach at Alabama A&M. He'll give his perspective on basketball in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Also, basketball overall. We'll visit with Coach Van Pettaway, former men's basketball coach at Alabama A&M. And as always, it's a pleasure to pick his brain and just dialogue with Coach Pettaway. Then, and that's an hour number one. Hour number two, usual guest Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network, his swag basketball report. So we'll be talking basketball. It's that time of the year. Conference play is underway. Some developing stories already early on. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Some news and notes. Pro Football Hall of Fame, I guess the 2020 edition. Congratulations to Harold Carmichael, former Southern University athlete. You will remember him, the Philadelphia Eagles. And growing up as a young tyke, watching Philadelphia was not my team, but hey, Harold Carmichael, what stood out about him? 6'8". 6'8". He was dominant in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Also, Winston Hill, Texas Southern, played the New York Jets. Congratulations to Winston Hill and family. And Donnie Shell. Got a chance to just briefly meet him, and I mean briefly. Played at South Carolina State with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So congratulations on those selections. And Harold Carmichael, boy, on social media, a lot of the comments were like this: justice served, finally. But boy, 6'8", and and back during that time, that's still big. 6'8", but he's from Jacksonville, Florida. He makes it. So for Southern University, that's 3. Aeneas Williams, Mel Blount, and Harold Carmichael. So see, there are some good stories from HBCUs that make it to the next level, whether it's football, basketball, or baseball. Relevant, as always. Let me say good morning. Dr. Prince, good morning to you, sir.
Well, good morning, sir. How are you this morning?
I'm amongst the living.
Well, so that is a good thing. That's a good thing. That is a good thing. Yes, sir.
And you're doing well?
I am doing quite well, sir. We got some high school basketball under our belt on last night. Girls won, men lost, but it is what it is. You can't win them all, but we had a great time.
Oh, that's outstanding. That's outstanding. Pro Football Hall of Fame. I know you remember Harold Carmichael.
Of course I remember Harold Carmichael.
Donnie Shell.
Yes, sir. And being a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I'm overly excited about Donnie Shell making it. And it was kind of ludicrous why it's taking them so long. They were saying, Donnie Shell and that 70s Steelers team, it was too many on the team in the Hall of Fame. If they were that good, and they were just that good. 51 career interceptions. And we let Dawkins get in, which Dawkins had a stellar career. He only had 37 career interceptions, 1 Super Bowl championship, and this man had 4 Super Bowl championships. So don't hate the player, hate the game.
Well, justice served, albeit later on.
Well, the old saying is better late than never, right?
Yeah. In this case, and with Harold Carmichael, I mean, soft hands, run after the catch.
Yes.
6'8", that stands out. But was that tight end? Nope. Didn't like it. Move him to receiver, and boy, some of those Eagle Cowboys matchups.
Oh
even
man,
back
yeah,
then.
yeah. But you know what? Now he had a stellar career, but you wouldn't categorize him with the breakaway speed. He had a long stride.
Possession.
He was a pure possession receiver. But man, when it was crunch time, Ron Jaworski would look in 17's direction all day and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, if we can look at it, and he played basketball. But, at 6'8" and possession receiver, and he can just position himself.
Right.
He can block out the defensive back. If you throw it up a little higher, you don't have to worry about it. He's going to get up.
But you know what's crazy? What's real crazy? I don't think they utilized him as much as they could have.
Well, I know he held, what was the record? He held the record for, oh boy, come on.
Oh, single season receptions?
Yeah, and consecutive games with a catch. He, I think he was before his time.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to overemphasize the height, but just, he of the prototypical possession receiver.
Oh yeah,
and just tough to defend.
Could you imagine him lining up in the slot today?
Yeah. Or even putting him in motion.
Oh my goodness.
And then after his career working, in the Eagles organization,
right,
and doing a lot of things to help the city of Philadelphia, now lives in New Jersey, and hey, a life of service after football.
Yes.
So kudos to all inducted and will be inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. In the show, we're going to talk a lot of basketball, of course, in the conference. And last week, I'll have to start off with saying that I picked Prairie View on the men's side. We're going to come to that because it didn't work out the way I thought it would. But locally, Southern University women and men's team, they split at home. And just give you a little bit of the rundown, Southern's women against Grambling State, and you're talking about a rival game. Anything could happen. Most people will agree with that. They were able to take care of business, 81-57. Now, that is a large margin of victory.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you, things can turn quickly in this conference. You could be on a 2-game win streak, 3-game win streak, and then boom, you lose. And so how you respond to adversity. So that set up the Monday's game, which was at 1 p.m. We talked a little bit at length on, 1 and 3 o'clock. The games moved up. We gave our opinion on why it shouldn't have happened, but why we thought it did happen. And a Jackson State basketball team on the women's side came in and just destroyed. And maybe that might be too strong of a word, but 72-51. And I cannot remember the last time that Southern women's basketball team lost by 21 points at home. And JSU is for real. We got the young transfer from Mississippi State, 6'5". They had the majority of the team that came back from last year's runner-up to Southern University. You have to think that they were really motivated for this ball game, but they added pieces, and this team is physical, big, and they are tough. And I wish I could be in Jackson, Mississippi today when they take on TSU. Is that the game of the year so far in the conference on the women's side?
You would have to say so. And, we could always send you the open mic helicopter, man, to transport you to that game.
Oh boy, yeah. It beats driving, get in and get out quick.
There you go, man.
My favorite city outside of Baton Rouge, huh?
Ah, there you go. And
Jackson State University.
I'm
huh?
pretty sure they will have a hospitality group there to meet you too.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. But I think it's humbling, and some of the feedback I got back on social media, Southern, they'll see them again in Jackson. Had a couple of people say, boy, I blame that time change. Come on. Now, wait a minute. We can be prideful, and you don't like to lose if you're a fan, alumni, supporter. But come on. That game was 1 p.m. for both teams. One team didn't show up at 1:15 and one showed up at 1 o'clock. Come on.
Are you sure about that, man?
Yeah. I'm going to say this, and if you disagree with me, that's fine. That's fine. I think this game was played at the regular time. It was going to be tough. JSU women are for real. And if you rank your top three on the women's side, here's a debate. Do you put TSU 1 or do you put JSU 1?
We'll determine that after today.
It'd be much easier. But let me just take a stab at it. Hey, TSU, they have been tough. I told one of my colleagues, JSU 1, TSU 2, but you can very well say 1A and 1B, and then 3 Southern University women, top 3 women's team. Now that's just on the women's side, but that race is going to go down. You would think to the last playing date in the conference, but boy, but TSU and JSU, and they play this afternoon. That is the game of the week on the women's side, the game of the year so far, in my humble opinion.
So let me put you on the spot, my man.
Go ahead.
Who you picking in that game?
JSU at home. Coaching, Dykes is tough. Reed is tough. I'm going to go with, believe it or not, I'm going to go with JSU in a barn burner.
Okay.
A tough one. And then if you look at the wins that they've had, Jackson State, double-digit wins.
Yeah.
I mean, it hasn't been some close games.
Well, you can say the same for Texas Southern now.
Well, yeah. Well, they beat Southern, by 5?
Well, yeah, but they blew the hinges off of PV and they blew the hinges off of Alcorn.
Yeah, well, JSU, all their conference games have been double-digit. Now, Southern's just a little bit tougher, and that was game 1 in the conference. So, I mean, it's debatable. I can see someone saying, no, I think TSU, I would put them the top team. But, boy, tomato.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And TSU, and you could make the argument the 1A and 1B.
So when you break this team down, I heard you murmur coaching. Who do you give the coaching advantage to, Reed or Dykes?
Reed is a fantastic up-and-coming young coach in the league. Cooper, Dykes. I'll give it TSU.
Okay.
With the experience, and she gets it done. Coaching, I'll get a slight edge or the edge to TSU.
Okay. And when you're impressed with the 6'5" post player for Jackson State, but
among others,
yeah, among others, but it's an evenly matched team. I personally would have it as a pick 'em. That's me personally, but if I was forced to choose one, I'm going to have to go with the experience of Cooper Dykes.
And I really couldn't say you were wrong on that. I mean, that's just how close this game should be. Now, somebody might go out and win by 25. You get hot on the street. You get hot like Alcorn did against Texas Southern on the men's side and just start hitting threes, raining threes from everywhere.
Right.
But the competitive fire, and I see what Coach Reed is doing at JSU. You know, she's new in the conference, but they're confident. And I think after that loss to Southern last year in the tournament championship, they were pointing, they were working, they did the necessary steps to add some pieces, and of course, TSU picked fifth?
Yes, which I think if you're Cooper Dykes, you're rubbing your hands like a mad scientist in the lab. I am so glad they picked us 5 so we can just go in here and do our thing, and they're going to think it's under the radar, but she's been using that as motivation from the day that the poll came out.
Yeah, and privately, she's probably saying, really? What I've done my third time around in this conference? Okay, I'll show you.
Right. How dare you? Like you told me last week, you're gonna take the glove off and smack me and challenge me to a duel. That's what she's doing.
Yeah, and the friends do it. How dare you? I challenge you. But it's going to be. We'll a little bit later on. We'll go through the schedule. We'll recap what happened last week in the conference. I'm very interested in seeing what Coach Pettaway, how he feels about what we've just kind of discussed on the women's side, and then on the men's side. Oh boy, somebody preached patience. Next year is the year, which that person still will stand by that statement. And and I still stand by that. But as some of you have pointed out to me, Mr. Franchise Coles Brown, let me tell you something. I see something a little bit differently. I see the same problem from last year. Defensively, can get after people, play hard. Now we're talking about men here on the men's side. But these droughts of not putting the ball in the basket and still having a difficult time scoring and consistently scoring. Who am I talking about? Southern University men's basketball team. Here's what they did. They lost to Grambling 61-56. Up 40-29 at halftime? Just like last year's game. My goodness. Couldn't finish. Now, add that cliche. Can't finish games. And so, some of the Jaguar Nation are getting a bit restless. But I am still going to preach patience. But how long will I be able to preach that?
I think you don't abort the wagon just yet. But when we're talking about college basketball, not NBA, because NBA is a total different beast. When I think of college basketball and even high school basketball, I think more of a team effort. I don't look for the superstar, and I'm using quotations on that, but I'm looking for guys that can do their part, when they're on that court. They do their 1/5 of their part. And you know how you do that collectively in high school and college? That's great consistent defense and hitting your free throws. And I don't have the stats right before me, but I would challenge to see where has Southern been free throw wise in these first 3 games out of the gate. That's, or the first 4 games out of the gate. That's what I would use as my measuring stick, and that's how you can make a drastic difference. We already said that they're playing pretty good defense. Look and see what their free throws have been.
Well, that's the assignment to look that up during the show. But offensively, these droughts, and one would say defense, playing it consistently and playing hard. No one is debating that. But you go through 2 and 3 minute droughts where you're not scoring, and your defense is already taxed because they've been playing hard. Some would say at the bottom line is you still, in spite of playing hard and playing good defense, a very good defense, you've got to be able to put the ball in the hole. And I think that is the challenge for Coach Wood and this basketball team. So they drop a 5-point decision to Grambling State, but then, they come back Monday night against a Jackson State team that has an opportunity to go 3-1 in the conference. And it typical Southern Jackson State game. It's a football game and a basketball game broke out. It's tough. It's physical. Oh, man. When these two teams play, my goodness, this is just the way it is. But Southern's able to split at home. Now they're 1-3, and now they're on the road against UAPB and Valley. So almost a ditto copy of last season. And they dig such a big hole, albeit they were able to make it in the tournament, Dr. Prince, but that's just so heavy to all. If you start off, let's say if you split these two games on the road, whether it be 2-4, if you lose both, then you're 1-5. You're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. You dug yourself a big hole.
Yeah.
And so I still preach. I'll tell everyone to be patient, but at the end of the day, you got to see some improvement.
So when does the patient's motivational speech wear out?
I think if the scenario I put forth, if they go to UAPB and they go to Valley and they come away with losses, then you're 1-5. And what did Charles Edmonds say? He looks at the first 6 games,
first half of the season, or first 6 games, something of that nature.
So I think then is when you're going to really start getting people to doubt if this team can get it done. So let's see what this weekend, and then the next weekend they have the Alabama schools in, so Alabama A&M and Alabama State. So then we're in a situation where you can't afford to lose any more, too many more, if you want to get into the tournament.
Right.
And you remember my goal was just simply, a top
4 seed.
4 finish. Yeah.
You want to be able to host.
Even if a 4th seed, that gives you a home game in the tournament.
Do you see that in jeopardy right now?
$50-50.
Okay.
I just have to see what happens this weekend. If they go 0-2 this weekend, Saturday and Monday weekend.
So the 50-50 drops then, right?
It's a big doubt now that's creeping in, I think, your mind.
Okay.
If they can do it, then you'll almost be to the point now, well, hey, say the top 4, how about just making the tournament? So, being on the road. But
well, I think my approach is, and I understand you want that home game, I want to make the tournament because anything can happen on the road or at home. Anything can happen. I'll never forget when they first started the concept of, the top seeds hosting. And Prairie View hosted Grambling. And it was Walker's last year before Jackson came in. And Grambling took us to the woodshed. And we were at home. We were feeling real good. So I just want to be able to get in the tournament and then come in. If you imagine if you're on the road, you're playing with house money. You don't have as much pressure. You just go in there, play loose, and do your thing. So I just want to make the tournament. Yeah, the comforts of being at home, sometimes that can bite you in the backside.
Well, I just think the chances of good advancing are just a little bit better if you're at home. Maybe my expectations are a little bit high. No, it's not. I think a fourth place finish, I would be happy with that. But yeah, you need to make the tournament. It's better to be in the tournament on the road than not in the tournament at all. Concede that point. But I believe that they had enough to get a home game in the tournament. Mm-hmm. That was my goal for Southern University men. Now, whether they do it or not, we shall see. But Saturday against UAPB, then Valley, even if they split, I don't think they can afford to come out of that weekend with no wins.
Right. Well, we know the ideal situation would be to get the sweep and come on back and get ready. But like you say, you want that split on the road, especially. But in the case where I'm looking like Prairie View lost, one of their home games. So now I feel like they got to sweep a road trip in order to get some things done. That's just me.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, we're going to get some involvement here. Jack, who I think is a basketball guru, he says, I think the men are okay after 4 games. They played the 3 top teams, in my opinion. 2 of those games were on the road. The men are okay right now. Well, Jack's trying to make me feel a little bit better there.
I think he is. I think he accomplished that too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. TSU, PV, and on the road. And that was my argument to my text group early on in the season. They were disappointed after the first 2. But, hey, you lost by 9, you lost by 10 to Prairie View, and you lost the first half by 10, and you played even with Prairie View in the second half, a 9-point loss in the opener, and then Grambling State. Yeah, good point, Jack. Good point. Good point. Then Grambling State, you're up by 11 at halftime. And those are the top 3 teams on the men's side. Mm-hmm. We hadn't got to that point yet, but in no particular order, in a particular order. I still, TSU, PV, and Grambling on the men, top 3.
Right.
Now, can you say, well, PV number 1? Well, TSU took care of PV last Saturday in the big rivalry.
Right.
So, but that's a good point. That's a good point. Good point.
You feeling better, man? You feeling better?
Well, I did say patience, and next year is the year for Southern University. But I don't want to be a doubting Thomas. But it'll creep in on you because, with all that being said, they've got to split this weekend. Okay. And ideally, if they can get two games, that would be great. Do they have the potential to do it? Yes. Do they have the potential to go 0-2? Yeah. And they could split.
That's why I like it and I don't like it. The way basketball is set up. Because you could barely get in, get the 8th seed, and you blow through the tournament, get on a hot streak, and you're representing the conference. And it's like there was no really true reward for winning the conference.
Well, we've had that discussion.
Oh, yeah, I know.
A lot, yeah. Ideally, and I know I've been in the minority on this thought, send your regular season champ. We talked to Coach Pettaway about the same thing, but the tournament's here to stay.
Oh, no. The tournament is a good thing. It is an awesome thing. But, if it works out the way it, quote unquote, is supposed to, then it's all good. But historically, all things don't work out as they're planned to.
Regular season champ. Send them on. No tournament. I got crucified for that by a couple of people years ago.
Well, I didn't say just send.
No, I'm saying I got crucified when I brought that up. But I stated how I felt about the situation, and even now, the regular season champ gets the automatic bid at least to the NIT, and then if they win the tournament, of course, then NCAA. But hey, just more incentive. If you win the regular season, reward that team or teams.
True.
So, with that being said, that's some of the action as far as the local team, Southern University. Prairie View, and then we'll get to Coach Pettaway. Prairie View women, boy, 0-3 on the road, Grambling State, and then to Jackson State. Is it a make it or break it weekend for PV women, or it's just don't panic, but just try to get a win or wins?
I'm going to say don't panic. I think I was on record for saying last week, realistically, with what you know that you have and what you're trying to develop, if I can get 3 to 4 wins by the midway mark of the season, I'm okay. Me personally.
Well, yeah. Well, a split would be ideal once again.
Right.
Grambling State, usually pretty tough at home. And then the monster I-20 East in Jackson.
I think tonight sets the tone.
Mm-hmm.
You'll know just what kind of fight that these young ladies have. And when I say fight, how you start and finish the game. And I'm not necessarily looking directly at the win or loss column, but just how you handle adversities, the highs and the lows of any given game, being on the road. Okay, that's what I'm measuring tonight. That's what I'm truly measuring tonight. And the more they grow together, the better they become as a unit. But you don't want to put so much panic that you seem like it's a lost cause. We're still talking about a team that has 70% freshmen. Mm-hmm. So you want to develop and you want to grow and you want to get that experience. So by the time they hit that mid-season, they'll know who they are. And then mentally and psychologically, they'll know if they are a legitimate Division I basketball player. Because you have people, and if you've never played at the D1 level, you have some doubts when you look at the person's physical attributes and think maybe because they're a little bit bigger than you, maybe a little bit faster than you, and you begin to doubt yourself. And I think right now they're playing through a lot of doubt. That's what I call this, that growth spurt. They're playing through a lot of doubts right now. But as they continue to grind, get a little bit better, get a little bit more cohesiveness on the game plan that Coach Pugh is trying to execute and teach them, I think they're going to be all right.
Well, they have that many freshmen in their freshman-oriented team. Yeah, they're going to just go through some growing pains.
Right.
But
I'm not using that as an excuse. Each game, you're supposed to get better. And I'm not going to say, you all, because at midway season of any sport, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, soccer, tiddlywinks, you're not a freshman any longer. You're just a freshman in theory because you've gone through your first wave.
And they may be better, and the record may not indicate that, but they'll get better.
Right.
They'll get better. They won't stay a freshman forever, and it'll be interesting to see Coach Pugh and what she can do with this year's women Prairie View basketball team. We'll take a time out. Derek, I love that. He says he's ready for Charles. He didn't agree with my top three, I guess. So Charles will set us straight, huh? Okay, we'll see. If the top three for the men, I stand by that. I stand by it, in my humble opinion. And on the women's side, I stand by it. But it's still early, right? Still early. And that's what makes it so fun. To have discussions on basketball. Football is over for a little while. But basketball. And then baseball will come up. Some fans have already told me, bring on baseball.
Hear, 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 hear.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm sorry. I got carried away. I'm sorry.
Well, no. And then even with that, who has the bullseye on their back this year?
Oh, we do know. We do know.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing about winning championships. That next year is hard. My goodness. And you better be prepared to defend yourself.
February 14th, baby, it all starts in the Big Easy.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Alabama State, Southern, all cornerback, PV. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I have to pop in that tape again. 15-0. Swag baseball champion. I was shocked about that, though. Not that they won, but the way they won that ball game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But the bullseye is on Coach Jackson, and then she's back. But we'll have baseball to talk about very, very shortly. Take a time out when I come back. Hopefully we'll visit with Coach Dan Pettaway, former men's basketball coach at Alabama A&M. Get the expert analysis from Coach Pettaway on what has taken place so far in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
Chris, can you put the video game controller down for a second?
I can talk and play. Oh, I'm totally annihilating this punk kid in Nebraska.
I just feel like you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Him too.
Well, you still ride your skateboard to work. There's the comic book collection, the race car bed.
Look, I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I picked up a few savings tips at feedthepig.org. I have control of my financial life now, and that feels pretty grown up.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. For free ideas and easy tips on ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
So, I bet I look like a grown-up to you now.
Well, except for the footy pajamas, I'd have to agree.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
One voice. It can get the point across, but it only carries so far. Add a voice. It's richer, louder, but that has limits too. Add a third voice. It's even more powerful. Add another, and many, many more. And we are stronger than ever. That's the power of a community coalition. They help community groups, faith groups, civic organizations, PTAs, employers, and many others in your community organize their resources and focus them where they're needed most, like fighting to keep kids away from drugs. Ask a group that you belong to if they should belong to a community coalition. It's easy to get involved. Visit helpyourcommunity.org and they'll tell you exactly how your group can help. That's helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more when we get together. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
Serving the community through faith and athletics. The Open Mic Broadcast Network.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. My first guest of today's show, he'll bring some calmness, some fire, some expert analysis. Former men's basketball coach at Alabama A&M, Coach Van Pettaway. Coach, good morning to you, sir. We missed you last week, although we knew you were going to be out.
Well, yes, Carlos, I'm happy to be here. And last weekend was like a reunion, seeing some of the other coaches that I used to coach with, and then, of course, taking one of the Giants home and Coach Oliver Jones. So it was a great weekend, and I'm looking forward to this weekend of SWAC basketball.
Well, I tell you what, they have some outstanding games, particularly on the women's side. I think the game of the year so far, albeit so early. And then on the men's side, we have a little discussion, a little interaction with some of our listeners. So we'll put you right in the firing squad, Coach Pettaway. You're used to that. I know you are.
Oh, yeah. Anytime you show up on that sideline, it's going to happen.
I appreciate it, sir. So with that being said, we were just kind of having fun, albeit we emphasize it's still early. On the women's side, your top three teams.
Well, I mean, I always thought Southern would be there. I thought Texas Southern would be there. And then I had Prairie View. That's going into the season now.
Right.
Yeah, that was me going into the season, and of course, I guess nobody expected Texas Southern to be as strong as they are, and I guess none of us thought Prairie View would be laying an egg now.
No, and
you know, Jackson State is up there, but you know they were picked second anyway.
And I tell you what, Jackson State, we got a young lady that transferred in from Mississippi State. She's about 6'5", and then you had pieces already there, and they were the runner-up to Southern University last year. Coach, they came to Baton Rouge and defeated Southern by 21 points. I'm impressed. I was impressed before, but now I know I'm impressed. Now, I can't remember the last time Southern women lost by that many points at home. I'm sure that happened, but it's been a while.
Right, and then Southern would be the other team that I think a lot of people would be surprised, you know, by them not doing well. You know, everybody picked them to win it, and then here they are down around 6 or 7, somewhere down there. So that's a good thing. But what it's showing is that you got parity in the league. That's all that is. Yeah, it's just showing that teams like Jackson State. I think Jackson State is showing people that you in basketball you're 1 or 2 players away from being on top. Mm-hmm. And with the transfer in there, of course, she's got them rolling. So right now, Texas Southern and Jackson, they're the class of the league. And then I don't think anybody expected Pine Bluff to be where they are, but it's still early though. Mm-hmm. It's still early.
Yeah, and Southern women have to go into Pine Bluff today. Pine Bluff 2-1. As a coach, when those predictions come out, you know, before the season starts, you take that with a grain of salt, right? Because you know it's won on the court, but what do coaches even think about? You know, those preseason predictions?
I know as a coach I didn't, because if you thought about them, you never win a game, because, you know, if they're constantly picking you toward the bottom and that's what you believe in, then that's what your team was going to do. Mm-hmm. So I never used that. I never used that. That in terms of trying to motivate my team to live up to expectations. The only time you might use it is if they pick you low and you know you got a better team. Mm-hmm. Then it's us against them mentality.
I understand. I just thought I had to ask that one. I kind of thought that's the way you were going to go with it. But, hey, you're the coach. I got to ask you. And speaking of that, on the men's side, discussion top 3 teams, in your opinion, is it a little bit more clear, albeit so early, on the men's side, top 3 teams?
Well, yeah, and I think that's really the way. It's just that the pecking order. They predicted Prairie View will win it, Texas Southern, and then Grambling. But of course, Grambling is leading Prairie View, and then Texas Southern. So really, it's no change there to me, because if you're in the top four, you can occupy any one of those spots in the early part of the season. Now, if we're past the midway point, that's when you start sweating now. Yeah. Because if you were picked in the top four and you're in the bottom four, then that's tough for you and your program.
And Coach, of course, you were out last week, but let me put this scenario to you, and I guess it shows you on any given day in the conference, TSU, they defeated Southern University. Then that Monday night, Alcorn comes in and they're raining threes everywhere, and they win by 15. And then Alcorn, Grambling State comes into Southern, a rivalry game. They're down by 11. I've seen that scenario happen before. And then they rally and beat Southern University. And then that Monday they go to Alcorn State, and boy, they lose by 18?
Right.
Monday night. Right. How can you prepare for something like that? And if you can't prepare for it, how do you respond to something like that?
Well, once you lose like that, you got to get ready for that next game. You don't want to continue. You just put that as that's just one game. We have to move on. See, I saw something similar to that this weekend when Mississippi Valley came into Huntsville, hadn't won a game all year. A&M was on a roll. But what happened? They come out shooting and making threes. That 3-point line, man, it would put your morale in the closet in a heartbeat. and that's what happened to Alabama A&M. They got down by 20. Now I give them credit. They did fight back. They fought back within two. Within two, and they 4 straight possessions. After coming back, they had 2 turnovers and 2 bad shots. And that sealed the doom for them. The 3-point shot has made not just in the SWAC, it's all across the country. Look how many top 10 teams have lost to unranked teams. And when you look at it, most of the time they're veteran ball clubs and they're clubs that are shooting the three. And when them threes rain down, it demoralizes your team. And it's hard to come back from that. So like in the A&M case, they spent all their energy coming from 29. So when they got within 2, just could not get over the hump. So that 3-point shot it'll make you and it'll break you. And that's what's happening in the SWAC.
And of course the 3-point line is back a little bit further, of course. But I would still think post play is still important. And the mid-range area on the court, from making shots, is important as well.
It is important, but the problem is we're not getting those dominant post players. We got some decent post players in the SWAC, but no one is just really dominating right now. But it's still early. It's still early.
Yeah, you're right. You live by the 3, you die by the 3. And I know in football we talk about being balanced.
Right.
But
in basketball, you got to have some kind of balance. You can't rely on that perimeter shot all night, and every night it's not going to be there.
Yeah.
So you got to have some defense, and you better have a backup plan. You better have some mid-range game, and you better have a post game.
And we visited with Coach Van Pettaway, former men's basketball coach at Alabama A&M. Coach, I've had some dialogue with some Southernites, and I preach to them to be patient with Coach Woods, because what you look at from my point of view is defensively they're pretty good. They play hard, but they have these droughts offensively scoring and lack of scoring, shall I say, and they're starting to get a little bit restless, and I'm trying to preach patience, but I don't know how that's going to work out. going forward. Southern.
Well, when it comes to shooting, if you don't already have them on campus, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
See, if that shooter's not already on your campus, you're in trouble for that season. The only thing you can do is if you can make it to the next recruiting war, get out there and get you a couple of shooters. But when it comes to offense, if the offense is not already on your campus, you're in trouble unless you scrap what you started with and you start over. In other words, I'm not saying this because I have not seen them in a SWAC game yet. If you got your system set up a certain way and it's obvious that it's not producing the points, then you need to change something. And you got to be willing and able to do that on the fly. Some coaches, they don't want to do that. They locked into what they have a system, and the system does not adapt to the player, to the personnel.
And also, that's an interesting point. And with Southern coming into the season, 13 new players? And,
right.
And chemistry. And
chemistry is going to be an issue. Yeah.
So if I say, Coach, next year should be the year that you see the most improvement, I can't really guarantee that. I can give you my opinion on it.
Right, but you would hope that after in the third year that you see improvement. Mm-hmm. If not, you need to make sure that you're packing light. You got to pack real light because you're gonna be moving. Yeah, well, you have to pack light because you will be moving.
And that would be year 3 next year for Coach Woods. And I'm sure you know him.
Oh yeah, I know Sean. Mm-hmm. Yep, and I hate him for him. He's a good coach. He, anybody that can go in the Mississippi Valley and win a championship, you got to give him a lot of credit. Because at the time, what he and Strickland them did down there, I don't know if you can find too many other people that can do that.
Well, I'm hoping for the best. I'm pointing toward next year is the year that you see the most improvement in year 3 of the contract. A word to the wise. If not, pack lightly. Wow.
Pack light. Yeah, pack light. But now, it's still early in the season now.
Yeah.
It's just 1-3, so it's a lot of games left.
Yeah. And the point we made, you looked at particularly Southern. They lost by 9 to Texas Southern. They were outplayed in the first half against Prairie View, had problems with their press, but they played them even Steven in the second half, so they lost by 10. And then Grambling State, quote unquote, the top 3 team, and they were winning by 11 at halftime. Just couldn't finish.
Right. So what you're looking at, they have gone up against the upper half of the SWAC. Let them get in the middle and toward the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I think they can balance their record out.
Well, that is the hope of many of the Jaguar nation as far as this conference race. So, Coach, you're going into the 5th and 6th conference games. Where do you kind of get the picture of how this team is going to be? At what point in the conference?
Well, by now, you should be set on your rotation. You know who your top 5, you know who your top 8. You're still working on getting a little more depth for some teams. If it was mine, definitely. I want to get at least 10. Try to have at least 2 players at each position, 2 players that can play multiple positions. All right? So at this point in the season, your rotation should be set. You should be able to go to those kids and come up with a combination that'll get you through ball games. And that's what the coaches should be looking at. That is, if you're healthy.
Yeah, no injuries and what have you. Visiting with Coach Van Pettaway, former men's basketball coach at Alabama A&M. Coach, you often talked about those Monday night games, and they're so tough. But the teams that win it, I'm sure they have a winning record on Mondays, albeit still tough playing that Monday night game.
Right. The teams that are winning that win those Monday night games, they're the ones that normally stay in the race. They're gonna stay in that top 4. That Monday night game is difficult because you only have one day in between. See, that Saturday game, you got all week to prepare, to game plan. But for that Monday game, there's only one day in between. And Crowley kept some of us, we started a long time ago working on that Monday game at the beginning of the week. And then do the last 3 practices for that Saturday game. So that everything is not new to those kids on Sunday. And that's one of the little tricks that you learn being in a league that plays on Saturday, Monday.
Yeah,
that's how you have to prepare for it.
Yeah, because we had this discussion the last time you were on about there was some talk about maybe moving the game, but you kind of said that wasn't gonna happen. Still, the Saturday, Monday situation is going to be the way it's going to go. And then also last week, Coach, Southern moved their game that Monday with Jackson State to 1 and 3 because of different activities going on around the state. As a coach, that's not decided by you, but do you think that the powers that be, they would come and say, Coach Pettaway, we're thinking about doing this. Get your thoughts on it. Does that happen or it doesn't happen?
It has happened. I'm the one that would make the suggestion, let's move the game up. I've done it before. Okay, and because if I'm at home, I still got the advantage. It's that road team that would have to make the biggest adjustments. So moving the game times up, whether it's by me or the administration, that didn't hurt our teams. We did it before. We did it before because we knew coming in that we had a Monday night game. You got this national championship game that's going to draw a lot of interest. And we knew it was going to hurt our gate receipts. We moved that game up so that our normal people would still have time to come in and then they can still entertain people at their houses. So moving it up has been my idea in some cases. We've done it for weather issues. In fact, A&M did it this past Saturday. They moved. That's why I was able to make the game. They moved their games back because of the storm that came through here during the afternoon.
Yeah, that was a powerful storm system because it came through here. It came through
Yeah, they like to wipe me off the highway coming back.
Oh, my goodness. I don't want that to happen.
Yep.
No. Well, it's because back to the time change, I talked to some people that felt it was a disadvantage to Southern. I didn't say that. Now, personally, I would have kept the game at the time schedule, but Jackson State had to play at the same time Southern did. The women. And the men were able to, defeat Jackson State. So I don't want to put it all on the time. Jackson State women basketball team, they're good.
Right. You can't put it on the time. The advantage for the school was they would make more money if they moved them games up because they'd have kept them at the regular time in the state of Louisiana with all that was going on. They'd have been in there playing by themselves, officials, and the media people would have been the only ones in there.
Well, I didn't look at the attendance, but it may have been the same at 1 o'clock. But I'm just saying, it was some discussion about that, and with the national championship game, and then the governor inauguration, his second term. In Louisiana for that. So it was some things going on. But hey, I asked for your opinion. You gave it.
Right. Yep. And I've done it, been there, done that. Yep.
Well, especially the weather. I understand that. I really do. And at first I didn't really like the time change, but hey, it
you
doesn't
got a
bother
chance
me
to
now.
enjoy more of your day when that happens.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. You know, if you're playing, the women playing at 2 or 3 o'clock, the men afterwards, you still have enough time after the game if you want to go do some dinner or what have you. And, you know, basically most of the conference, that's the rule they follow. I know UAPB and I think Texas Southern still have night games. So
on Saturdays, right. But see, that was part of the reason why the conference, the SWAC moved everything up to help some of the teams. You know, especially the men. We playing to 9:30, 10 o'clock, and you down in Itabena or you down in at Alcorn. What do you have for your team at that time of night? Nothing.
Well, speaking of Alcorn, Coach Derek says, and I guess he kind of and I love Derek to death. We sometimes we agree and we're gonna disagree. He says Alcorn beat Texas Southern and Grambling already and beat them handily. You know, the double digits. Still early on, but he has Alcorn in his top 3. But I think that's a valid point. They did go to Texas Southern and they were so hot, and they defeated Texas. Then they beat Graham State. I guess his argument is Alcorn has defeated 2 of the top 3 teams that we said were the top 3 teams right now, and how they were predicted to finish. He wants to give the kudos to Alcorn State.
Well, Alcorn deserves some credit now. They did do a good job, but it's still early now. You know, you're not gonna win a championship in January. You know, that's gonna be one in February. You know, even though they're 2-2 right now. So it's still a long ways to go. They're in 5th place. So he can do that to try to make things look good, but when it comes to on the court, it's got to happen on the court now.
In other words, consistency, and you'll give Alcorn credit
for the 2 wins.
Yeah,
but it's too early.
But I was going to say, Coach, if they're in the top 3 at the end of the regular season, then you'll still give them credit.
Let me tell you something. If they're in the top 3 at the end of the season, when they were picked 9th, you got to give all the kudos to them. Mm-hmm. If they finish in the top 3, they preseason, the coaches say they were the 9th best team in the league. So if they can pull that off, oh yeah, we're gonna dance for them.
I understand. But you know, fans are fanatics. They love their teams. They love their institutions. And give them credit. They did go into Texas Southern and win by 15. They did knock off Grambling State by 18. And that's after Grambling State came to Baton Rouge and won the rivalry game.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Coach,
you have trap games. See, the Mississippi Valley game, that was a trap game for A&M. They riding high. Now they're looking at Alabama State. Their rival is the next game. Mm-hmm. Surely Mississippi Valley can't beat us because they haven't won a game this year. Trap game. And when them threes started raining, that doggone trap started opening up. It got tighter and tighter.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, on the men's side, then we'll let you go. Alabama A&M and Alabama State. Who's got the edge in this ball game?
Well, probably State, because it's on a neutral site. You've given up your home court, but that's my alma mater. But I'm still going with A&M. Mm-hmm.
And on the women's side, I say the game of the week, game of the year on the women's side. Jackson State hosting TSU. Coach Cooper Dyke.
That's gonna be a doozy. But I'm gonna go with Texas Southern. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Texas Southern on the road. Yep.
Well, there you have it. I understand. Boy, that's a experience.
Yep, that's a good one.
Talent, all across the board. I almost wish I was there.
Yep.
Well, Coach Pettaway, as always, we appreciate you. Your candor.
Good.
Man.
Happy to be here.
Yes, sir. We'll talk with you next Saturday.
Okay, thank you, guys. You all have a good day. Have a good week.
Too.
A blessed week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks a lot. That was Coach Van Pettaway, former men's basketball coach at Alabama and NIM. Wow. Well, we're getting a lot of messages pouring in. I don't have time to answer all of them. What shall I do? Well, Derek says make a case for Alcorn State. And he's got the percentages down of what they've done so far. Let's just give them credit. Alcorn number 1 in points per game, top 3 in shooting, number 1 in free throw percentage. Why Alcorn is not undefeated in conference? Because nice stats. It's really some nice. Oh, I'm not trying to be facetious here, because I don't want to. I don't want to get the smoke after me. Derek says, I like our shot if we can continue to play and keep those levels up like that. Number 1 in rebounds. Yeah. We got to watch Alcorn a little bit. Because, I did take a little shot a couple of what was that, a month ago? 2 months ago? When I said Alcorn State is outstanding in football only. And an athletic department is just that. All sports, very competitive. Maybe they're trying to change that with the basketball season. All right, Derek, I appreciate it. He's making legitimate positions why Alcorn should be in our top 3 right now. So we'll take a timeout. When I come back, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Let's see what he has to say. Alcorn, a top 3 team on the men's side. It's so early. On the women's side, TSU, JSU, and Southern University. All we're saying, folks, is this. It's early, and there's still a lot of games left to be played in the conference. Let's see how it goes from this point forward. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
Be the one with courage to fight child abuse.
All Texans must find the courage to fight child abuse.
Learn the signs and symptoms and report suspected abuse to appropriate authorities.
Learn and know these warning signs.
A child who undergoes changes in behavior, appetite, or routine.
Watch for unexplained injuries, a change in academic performance, or loss of interest by a child in regular activities.
Trust your instincts. If you suspect something, do something.
If you believe a child is in an abusive situation, please call the Texas Abuse Hotline at 1-800-252-5400.
Be the one with courage. To find your local Children's Advocacy Center, visit onewithcourage.org.
On behalf of children, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I present to you 3 of the fiercest subjects ever assembled in the cage of doom. First, the brain-wrenching behemoth Algebra 2, weighing in at a mind-boggling 800 pounds. Foreign languages! The multilingual international sensation capable of tossing you clear across the Atlantic. And finally, biology. More ferocious than formaldehyde, she'll dissect you 1 chromosome at a time. Who among you will step up to their challenge?
Yeah, I'll do it. Me too. I'm in. Sign me up.
Take on the tough classes now.
You need them to prepare for college. Find out which classes you need at knowhowtogo.org.
Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation for Education, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and the Spreaker.com. Hour number 2 of the Carlos Brown Show, 10 a.m. to 12 noon Central Standard Time. Second guest of today's show, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. On the road again. Charles, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Carlos Brown. How are you on this Saturday?
Well, I'm doing fine, and yourself?
I'm doing well. Doing well, almost a third of the way through conference play, and I think this is going to be one of those years in which we'll be talking about a bunch of teams fighting for the top spot, fighting for home games. It's going to be a wide-open season on the men's side.
We can understand that, and we might as well put you right on the podium, the firing squad. In the first hour, we've had some interaction with some listeners, and we're just going to ask you. One of the listeners believes Alcorn should be listed in our top 3. I came up with my top 3 on the women and men's side, albeit it's still early on, and we emphasize early on. He thought that Alcorn State's not getting any love because they defeated TSU by 15 on the road and then defeated Grambling State at home this past week by 18. What say you, Charles?
Well, those are 2 impressive wins. There's no question about it. I mean, our 2 wins have come against 2 of the top 4 teams in the conference. In Texas Southern, we broke a 25-game losing streak against TSU, and a Grambling team that came back from 13 down 2 nights earlier to beat Southern. But then we come in against Prairie View and have a bad first 10 minutes, and then against Jackson State. Jackson State just made shots and made plays. Their athleticism really won the day, and I think they're the most athletic team so far that I've seen in the SWAC. So right now, and Montez Robinson has preached this for last week, consistency. You win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1, win 2, lose 1. That's not consistency. So right now, he's preaching consistency at this point. We'll see if, in fact, that's going to be the case today. I think that Valley coming off their first win against A&M, leading wire to wire, and I just spoke with Lindsey Hunter, their coach, and first-year head coach. At one point, he was on Alcorn's campus. Things didn't quite work out. He wound up at Jackson State, and you kind of know the rest. You go back in SWAC history. But consistency is the key right now. I'm still going to say, and I'm one of those that goes with the champs until they get knocked off. I'm going with Prairie in 1. I still think Texas Southern is 2. And I'm still going to say Grambling 3. I just think we caught Grambling maybe not with the same energy level after playing their arch rival Southern, fighting back from 13 down. And I think they just ran out of gas. And I do think the Braves were just red hot and a little ticked off because they lost to their number 1 rival in Jackson State. So those are the kind of things I think you're going to see on a nightly basis in our conference the rest of the way. I don't think there's going to be a dominant team like Prairie View was. They got hot and they won the regular season last year. I think it's going to be tough for anyone in this league. There's no guarantee Prairie View and Texas Southern is going to get out of Grambling and Jackson State these next 2 days. I think both of those teams are going to, talking about the home teams, Jackson and Grambling are going to play tough. So I'm going to say, to answer your question, yes, I think Prairie View 1. Yes, TSU 2. I think Grambling 3. If the Braves can knock down shots, which they're the top 3-point shooting team, if they continue to do that, yes, they'll be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in conference.
Well, you've heard it. Charles Edmonds' opinion. And we're going to come back to the men's side. Women's standings right now on a 4-game winning streak. Texas Southern 3-0, 8-6 overall. Jackson State 4-0 in the conference, 6-8 overall on a 5-game winning streak. Charles, something's going to have to come to an end today somebody's streak is going to end in Jackson. We're talking about the women here. Alcorn State. Wait a minute. Alcorn State 2-1.
Alcorn State's 2-2.
2-2. Okay. All right. I'm going off of swag.org here. Okay. I just want to make sure. That's why I said that. I don't know. That when I said 2-1, I was like, wait a minute. UAPB 2-1. Alabama A&M 2-2. Alabama State 2-2. Southern 2-2. Grambling State 1-3. Prairie View 0-3. Mississippi Valley State 0-3. Back to the game of the week, the game of the season so far. Texas Southern and Jackson State. I'm interested in seeing who you think will win this ball game in Jackson this evening.
I think Jackson State is a little bit more up tempo, even though Texas Southern is as well. I'm gonna go with Texas Southern. I've seen Texas Southern and I've seen Jackson State. I think the key for Texas Southern is their perimeter shooting. They have a kid in Velez, good as it comes from beyond the arc. If Jackson State can push their defense out beyond the perimeter and get her off the three-point line and make them more of a half-court team, I think Jackson State has a chance. Coach Reed's team has been deep. They play 12, 13 players. That depth might be the factor in deciding that game. If it's close, it's in Jackson. I do have Jackson State winning the game, but if it's a track meet, if Texas Southern gets up and down the floor and wears down JSU, I think Texas Southern will win it. If I had to make a prediction right now, I'm going to go with Texas Southern. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes in overtime. I think it'll be a one-bucket game. Free throws might decide it. But I do think Texas Southern is just a slightly better team, especially if they quicken the tempo. If they don't, and it's a half-court game, I think Jackson State will win it. But if I had to put some money on it, I'm going to bet Texas Southern.
Interesting. I think the consensus is so far, just the feedback I'm getting, Texas Southern. And I think I said Jackson State, or did I say it? Did I make a prediction yet? No, I think Dr. Prince asked me. I think I said Jackson State.
You said Jackson State, and I said Texas Southern. So
you're
already on record. You're already on record, sir. And by the way, I do have that updated standings for you if you want that.
Okay. Well, I think it was just the Alcorn that was off.
I will say, though, Carlos, if you look at Cynthia Cooper's career, both at Prairie View and Texas Southern, if you just think back a little bit, and I thought about it the other day, it seems like Coop's teams, when they go to Jackson, it's a little bit of a struggle. I mean, when they've had really good teams at TSU and Prairie View, when they go to JSU, it seems to be a matchup issue there. So I don't think that's the issue in this case. I do think, though, TSU has a couple of twin tower bigs at 6'3" that are raw, that are projects that are really going to be good, and no one's going to be able to handle them in time if they get the proper development, which, Coach Cooper's going to make sure that happens. But I think that for some reason, Jackson State has always had their number, especially a Cooper coach team when they play in Jackson. But I just think this year's TSU team a little bit more up tempo, and they can just run you out of the gym. And if they do that, then I think TSU will win it. Although I think Jackson's defense, though, will probably try to slow them down a little.
Half court, Jackson State, physical. TSU wants to be up tempo. Kind of reminds me of the Lakers and the Celtics back in the 80s, Charles.
Yeah.
And let's just make a note of this. Monday, January 13th, last Monday, Jackson State comes in the Southern and a 21-point victory. Jackson State over Southern University. When is the last time that has happened? That Southern has lost by that many? Can you think of any time in recent memory?
At home, I want.
Yeah, at home.
I want to say, if I go back to the Tanya Edwards coach teams in which it was defense first, I want to say, I might be wrong about this, that there was a game in which the Lady Braves handled Southern kind of, maybe 15-20 because the Lady Braves defense just took Southern completely out of their offense. And I think there was a time in which at home, I think Alcorn won by 18 or 19. It's happened. It doesn't happen very often. And
at home for Southern University.
I remember one Alcorn game in which I played several years ago, but does it happen often at the F&G Clark Center? No, it doesn't. That's a rare Monday night slip up. And look, I think this year you're going to see more of that. I think teams coming off tough wins on Saturday, tough losses on Monday. Teams with tough losses on Saturday, big wins on Monday. I think the Braves did it. Southern's men did it. Valley did it. I think you're going to see a lot of that in the conference, probably more so this year than you have it in years past. But clearly a disappointing loss for Southern, and that's not the way you want to go on this trip because it's not going to be easy. Trying to beat Don Brown's team, the UAPB first-year coach. I do think Valley is struggling a little bit, but if Southern is still down on themselves and in their feelings about Saturday, they're going to come in here Monday and get beat. So I do think a loss like that, you don't want to let a loss like that beat you twice. You've heard that. It's an old saying, but it's true. You don't want that embarrassment at home to linger into today's game. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, last Saturday on the women's side, Texas Southern over Prairie View, 88-65. Jackson State over Alcorn, 83-67. Alabama State over Mississippi Valley State, 77-64. It was Southern over Grambling State, 81-57. And Alabama A&M over UAPB, 74-55. Then Monday, of course, we just mentioned it. Jackson State over Southern University, 72-51. Alabama A&M over Mississippi Valley State, 68-48. Alcorn State over Grambling State, 80-54. And UAPB over Alabama State, 73-62. So Grambling State women have struggled. It'll be interesting to see if Prairie View women can go into Grambling, Louisiana, and get a victory. But I would think Grambling State would want to just bounce back at least after those two ball games, blowouts, and redeem themselves, Charles.
I think it's going to be tough. I saw Grambling the other night. You lose a once-in-a-lifetime women's player, Sky Hill. When you lose that, and everything revolves around that team, revolves around her. Everything about that team revolves around her. And you lose that piece, it's going to take you a minute to rebuild that. And you're probably not going to get another player like that in a while. So you have to do it by committee. And I think Grambling's still kind of finding their identity. Offensively, they don't have the punch. And look, I'm a Grambling grad, so I hate to say it, but it's really the truth. I just think it's going to be a rebuilding year for Grambling a little bit. I do think they have the pieces of the puzzle, but they don't all fit right now. And I think it's kind of showing these two games. They're at home. You figure they'll play harder. They'll play better. But I do think Prairie View, I think Texas Southern's better than Grambling. I think that Prairie View game, though, might be a little bit better game because I just don't think Sandy Pugh's team has the offensive firepower that they once have had. It's kind of the same thing that Grambling went through. So, and I think these are two big games for Grambling, and I think these are big games for Prairie View. You kind of set yourself up for the halfway point of the season,
which is coming up rather quickly. And, maybe I'm wrong of thinking this way, but Hill was a tremendous quadruple in and out on several occasions with Grambling State University. And the impact of that loss, I understand it. But I as a coach, and I know it will happen, but I would never like to be in a position where impact player leaves and there is some drop, but I wouldn't want to drop that far off. But with that being said, a tremendous player and Miss Hill, but man, I thought they would be in a better place than they are now. But I'm not a coach, just my opinion. But they are struggling mightily right now. On the men's side, Grambling State, Prairie View, Texas Southern, Arkansas Pine Bluff, Alcorn, Alabama A&M, Jackson State, all in the mix. Not too much separation, albeit so really early on. But on the men's side, tremendous games this weekend as well, Charles.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big week coming up because this sets the table for the first half of the season. I mean, this has no bearing on down the road because things can change. Teams get hot later down the road, and we've seen that in our league with Prairie View and with Grambling. But this kind of sets the table for the first half of the season. I think these last two games, Monday night this past Monday night was a huge night in our league as far as teams trying to stay in the conversation. I mean, the Braves didn't want to be here 1-3. Southern didn't want to be at Pine Bluff 0-4. Valley didn't want to come home 0-4. And yet those teams came up with huge wins after disappointing losses. So I think, can you build on today based on what you did Monday? And I think, those teams, the Braves were a little confident. Obviously coming here, facing a first-year coach in Lindsey Hunter who played in the NBA. We're going to be looking at some NBA sets. When you have pro coaches coming back to this level, you're going to look at some NBA sets and ball screens and a lot of movement without the ball. Southern playing George Ivory's team, looking at that 2-3 zone. So we're going to have to knock down shots. I know it's been a struggle there. So it's George Ivory does what he does. You're going to look at that 2-3 zone all game long. And until you knock down shots, you're going to be looking at that 2-3 zone all game long. That's what he does. So Southern's been a team that struggled to knock down shots. They're going to have to do it today or else it's going to be a long day over at Pine Bluff. But these two games are kind of table setters for what we can expect the first half of the season. I mean, if Southern struggles, then you're looking at 1-5. If the Braves struggle at 2-4 and scratching their head coming home against an A&M team that's much improved. For Texas Southern and Prairie View, no guarantee they're going to get out of Grambling and Jackson. I think both those teams are going to be ready. I think Grambling's fighting mad because the Braves pretty much handed it to them the other night. So, Grambling plays well at home. So I think they'll give TSU and Prairie View a run for their money. So I think coming out of Monday night, Tuesday morning when we pick up the paper and see these standings, I think you're going to see the teams that are going to probably be there for a while. The ones that are struggling, if they continue to struggle, it's going to be a struggle to get out of the hole. We've kind of seen that throughout the course of the SWAC standings.
Yeah, and it appears after a very emotional rival game, especially if you win like Grambling State against Southern University, they come back and win it. They're down big at the half by double digits. Then they go into Alcorn and they lose by 18. So what you're seeing is you're seeing some upsets. You're seeing some hot shooting nights. But apparently these Monday nights, you keep hearing about how tough it is on Monday nights. I think that the team that can master the Monday nights with a winning percentage, I think they have a good shot to be there at the end as far as putting yourself in place to reach your goals. Coach Pettaway was on before you, and he talked about the difficulties on Monday nights, but everybody has to go through it, Charles.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're at home and you lose, you're embarrassed because you lost at home, and then you got to pick yourselves up. Coaches on you on Sunday, and then you got to, Sunday afternoon, you got to flip the page. If you win, you're happy, but you can't be too high. If you're on the road and you lose on Saturdays, you got to hit the road either Saturday night after the game or Sunday. You're still mad if you lost that game, and you got to get it out of your system. You can't sleep. I mean, just being on the road with these teams, you could just tell it's just a whole different dynamic winning and losing on the road. So it's, that's what makes this league tough. I mean, the ones that can get through it, TSU and Mike Davis, they found a way to do it. Prairie View did it. Grambling's done it. I mean, you know Monday nights are going to be tough no matter what you do on Saturdays. Mondays are always the tough deal. And our former coach, Davey Whitney, said it best many, many, many years ago. Upsets in this league happen more on Monday nights than Saturday nights. And that's kind of been the trend already this year. And I think you're going to continue to see that as we roll forward.
Listener Derek wants to know, is attendance with basketball a true issue, or we just a football-loving conference, and it is what it is? Well, it is a football-dominated conference from a fan's perspective. It's just the way it is. Basketball. Go ahead.
Oh, well, there's a few theories on that. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked the question, because you and I texted about this week. I talked with SWAC Commissioner Dr. Charles McClellan. You know, his son kind of plays for Jackson State. So he was at the game last week, and I interviewed him, and we had a long talk about the Celebration Bowl, as well as the lack of interest or attendance at SWAC basketball games. And his theory on it is attendance is a byproduct of winning. And when you're looking at, and when folks start getting into SWAC basketball in January after the national championship game and football's kind of dying down, college game, you look at these teams and we're 0-13, 1-12, 2-10. It just doesn't generate the interest. Now, it'll pick up a little bit.
Somebody said that a couple of times, but anyway.
Well, he has a theory on that, and I guess we can talk about it a little bit. The conference is going to start putting some mandates in place. It's not in stone yet, but he did say it's coming. He believes that he can't stop these guarantee games. You know, we all have to play these guarantee games. Our ADs and presidents mandate that these basketball programs bring in $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 in non-conference. That means you're going to be playing the Arkansas of the world, the Dukes of the world, the Kentuckys of the world, in some cases, and others, the Gonzagas, and some lower mid majors. But you got to bring in a certain amount. But what he is saying is that he's going to strongly curtail the number of D1 games that you're going to be able to play in non-conference, meaning those church schools, meaning, we can say that the Russ and the Tougaloo's and the Jarvis Christians of the world, it's going to be mandated. It's not quite there yet. They're still coming up with the parameters of it. Maybe in a year or so, it'll probably be on the books, if not 2 years, but they're still working on all the details of it. But to curtail the number of those games that we play, and we play a bunch of them in non-conference, there's no doubt about it, 4, 5, 6 games. He says at the most 1 or 2. So that means that you're going to have to go out and get your good schedule together. And he said there is some data that reflects where you are in the RPI and all of that, the quads. He explained it to me, and he kind of explained it on the tail end of our interview, and I was kind of confused by it. But what he's saying is we got to play a better schedule non-conference outside of playing those top-tier teams that we're getting the guarantees. Mid-majors and others. I know we've talked about it. You had the Southland Conference Commissioner on your show many years ago about that. But that's coming. That's coming. It's just a matter of when, but it's in the fact-gathering stage right now. But I think if we're winning more games in non-conference, I think that will, in his opinion, it will directly reflect better attendance and better interest throughout the league. And that's something that the conference is working on as we speak.
Now we're talking about basketball, correct?
I'm sorry, basketball. I'm sorry, yeah. Basketball.
Okay, no. Now I just want to make sure. So I can't be facetious and say can't limit some of those guarantee games. Albeit you're Division I in basketball, Alcorn is Division I, just like Kansas State. But we know there's a difference.
Right. And
so we can't limit those guarantee games.
No. He says they're not going to mess with that. And I think he's saying that being a former AD at 2 SWAC schools, he knows that his chancellor and his CFO is mandating that, hey, basketball's got to bring in this amount of money to support the coaching staff, to support the salaries, scholarships, all that. I think he understands that. Do I think somewhere in the distant future that's going to be a conversation? I do. But again, I think there's going to be this conversation between the ADs and the coaches on this too, because a coach wants to be successful and put his or her team in position to be successful. But I think the argument on that is no SWAC coach has been fired in basketball for what they didn't do in non-conference. It's all about SWAC coaches are judged, and you can say fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, what they do or don't do in conference starting in January. And that's been the case throughout history, and I don't think that's going to change because it's understood that you're putting your team in a tough spot by playing Gonzaga, by playing UCLA, by playing, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State and these other schools. I think it's understood, and it's what you do or don't do in conference which will determine your fate, whether you'll still be at that school. I think in basketball, the earliest I remember a SWAC coach being fired was at Prairie View. Byron Rim III was let go 6 games in the conference play. I think that's well, I'm just saying, it's just, do you let it play out during that season, or do you just say, you know what, it's time to make a change right now? And I get that, but I'm just saying in terms of the early in which the timing in which it's done. Through 6 games, you can still turn it around. Teams have gotten hot, and I guess after a period of years you've been there, and if you see that it ain't gonna happen, you pull the plug on it right then and there. And so that's what happened. But typically, SWAC basketball coaches typically get let go at the end of the season, the end of their contract, whatever the case. But in terms of scheduling, I think the conference, and this is what the commissioner has said, he's told you this, he's told me this, he's told everybody, he wants to increase the overall profile of the league. And in football, he's talking about that in terms of the FCS playoffs, as well as celebration, having a team in both. And in basketball, having a better basketball non-conference schedule, which means curtailing the number of those D1 games that you play. He told me one at the most 2 during the course of the season. Now, I do think there'll be some conversation with the basketball coaches about that because they want wins. They want their team to at least taste victory, even though it's not against the D1. But I think as a conference overall, from top to bottom, he kind of wants everybody to be on a string, if you want to use the basketball terminology. So we'll see. It's still in the early stages. I think it's still probably a year away, but it is coming. He did say that it's coming down the road. They're doing their fact finding and just trying to put all the parameters together to present it to the full body sometime maybe later on this year.
Yeah, I just, once again, just talking to just a select number of people, I guess, fans, and you probably can still do it again. I think it curbs the excitement of, and I'm talking about basketball here, if your team is 2-12, 2-10, 1-11, and you're playing all these guarantee games, when the conference season starts, it's like, oh, okay, well, we're playing teams in our conference on our level, basically. So now we got to get excited. And you made the point, well, a coach won't get fired. No, for playing all those guaranteed games. But I still say you have to be balanced with that. I think it's up to the individual ADs and the people of influence at the institutions. But why would you play that many? And I know some teams do that. And then every now and then in basketball, you have some upsets, but on a consistent basis, it doesn't happen. I personally, I'm not excited about a 3-10 Southern team or 3-11, and they played Michigan State, Florida State. They played Seton Hall, and all on the road because that's where you have to go. You don't see that team for months. Well, let me back up. You don't see that team for a while. And then all of a sudden, I see my team, and they're 3-10. Not good. Not good at all. But that's the way of the world in this conference, I guess.
Well, it's all about dollars and cents. I think if it wasn't for that, that's what this is all about. There's this. Every school has a business manager or a CFO, and there's dollar amounts tied to athletics. Football's bringing in what they're bringing in, but then if you're looking at a school like Texas Southern, for example, that has brought in $1 million worth of guarantees, and I think I've heard that number floated around when Mike Davis was coaching, you got to pay for that program. That program's got 5 coaches. You got a strength and conditioning coach. You got a director of basketball ops that's on that payroll. You got to pay for all that stuff. And now, granted, Texas Southern's kind of the exception because they do have a big staff. I think probably the biggest staff in the conference. So in order to pay for that, how are you going to pay for that? You have to go out and get those games. And sure, some of the university gets the vast majority of it. But then at the same time, basketball is going to get a lot of that as well. So you're paying for that. Whereas, I think coaches don't necessarily want to do that. But again, I think it's more coming from the top down. That the presidents and the CFOs that kind of run the universities are saying, look, basketball's got to bring this in to support the scholarships. You get 13 scholarships. There's a dollar amount that's attached to that. So if that's factored into the whole formula of bringing in some of that guaranteed money, some of that's going to pay for your program. And once you get in the SWAC, then, it is what it is in terms of travel and expenses and all that. That's pretty much standard across the board. We're all doing the same thing, staying in the same hotels and all that stuff. But if you want the big shiny program with 5 and 6 coaches on the bench, and you want the updated weight room, I guarantee you, if you go to, and Dr. Prince knows this, if you go to TSU's facility, the basketball offices, Mike Davis's office, Cynthia Cooper's office, the way it looks now compared to the way it looked 5 or 6 years ago, that money to pay for those upgrades directly came from those basketball guarantees. If it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have what you have. So I get what you're saying. As a fan, you hate to see your team 2-12, and I don't want to see it either. I mean, we're teams 0-12, 0-13, because I'm about my team, which is all for them, but I'm also a SWAC guy. I like to see us do well throughout the conference, but I don't think it's going to change unless there's more money coming from the university to support those programs to make up for those guaranteed games. Do I see that happening anytime soon? Probably not. And I think the conference is going to step in, and I asked Dr. McClellan this, is there going to be a push to curtail the number of those games? I think former Commissioner Dewar Sharp had that 9-7-5 model. Remember that a few years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a 9. Where first year you're going to play 9 of those big games. You're talking about Kentucky, Duke, whatever. Then 7, then 5 over a 3-year period. That never got off the ground, and I think there'll be some pushback on that anyway, if in fact it was the law of the SWAC. But I think what you're saying in terms of balance, there are teams that you can play that are not of that caliber that you can still bring in a decent coin and still win those games. I get that. There are plenty of teams like that, the Sanfords and the Stephen F. Austin of the world, even the lower tier, the New Mexico States, that'll give you a good guarantee. They're not all that great in basketball. And if you play well, you can beat them. Now, are you going to get those games at home? Probably not. I mean, I think that's the other challenge that we have. You're not going to, if those teams were coming to your place as well, you would probably feel a little better about it. But, the days of that's not going to happen. And then even the 2-for-1 contracts that I've heard about, I think those are few and far between as well. You'll get a guarantee, but you're going to go to their place twice and they'll come to your place once. Is the coach accepting of that? Probably not. So, I mean, basketball, there's a possibility of more moving pieces, but I think for right now, I think it's kind of status quo. But what the commissioner's saying is, look, take the Tougaloo's and the Russ colleges and the Faith colleges and all of that, take those away or curtail those to maybe 1 or 2 and try to find a better quality of schedule in the low mid-majors to mid-majors where you might have a chance to get some wins and build your record.
Well, mid-major? Yeah, go ahead. Dr. Prince wants to interject.
When the dust settles, what does CFO stands for?
I didn't hear Dr. Prince. What did you say?
What does CFO stand for?
Oh, Chief Financial Officer.
What are some of the responsibilities of the CFO, other than to watch the budget?
Yeah, the CFO at a university is to watch the budget of every unit in the university, which includes athletics.
Right. Going and coming, right?
Correct.
The problem across the board is lack of sales. And when I say lack of sales, we got this wide, harebrained notion that this is like the field of dreams. If you build it, they'll come. But it's just like anything in broadcasting a game, in broadcasting a talk show, and you can have all of the best topics, the best guests, but if you're not selling, no one even knows that there is an opportunity to buy. And we have got to get out of this fat cat syndrome. And when I say a fat cat syndrome, we had a cat one time and there was a mouse in the house, but the cat was being fed so much, he let the mouse run around. Okay? Well, guess what? When you tighten that belt and get rid of that cat food, guess what happens? The survival nature kicks in. And you're going to have to go and get that mouse. Okay? Yeah. And it's the same thing. We got people in position in title and theory only. You know, we talk about the culture of marketing and social media. Yeah, marketing is more than sending out a tweet. Marketing is more than sending out an Instagram or Facebook. You got to get out here and sell your product. And if you don't believe in the product that you're trying to sell, you're not the person for that job. I don't care about what title you have if you can't go sell. Every school in this conference and beyond has somebody within their local area that they can sell naming rights to, they can sell some type of corporate plan to, and they're not taking advantage of that, and they're waiting. It's almost like a welfare system. We want somebody to give it to us instead of us going to get it. And you have to change that approach because the fat keep getting fatter and the lean gonna starve to death. Those guaranteed games are nothing but lazy attempts at fundraising. You tell a basketball program you need to go get $500,000, $600,000, and then you're going to complain. I'm not saying we're complaining, but you're going to complain that people are not coming to the games or you're not winning like you should win when you're not giving them the advantage by going out there and beating the pavement within your local community. An explosion works from inside out. It goes down, back up, then out. We're trying to land big fish when we can't even get the guppies right in our ponds. That's the problem. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, but that's the problem.
Well, you know, one of the things that we've talked about, and I think this has kind of been the case at all of our schools for the most part, the conversation that we have, you talk about marketing, and I agree that there's some challenges there throughout our schools. But what excites fans, and I know our fans in general, we always talk about getting kids from the local areas. And I know Carlos and Baton Rouge, it's a huge basketball and football area, and I know you've always been big on that as well. What could help is and I know coaches are aware of this too, our coaches are, and they try to get kids from the local area that'll bring fans. You know, we have a kid, Tremaine Crosby from Laurel, that they've been identifying since he was a sophomore in high school. And, you know, fans come from within the state to see that kid play because he's from the state. So I think that is a help as well when you're getting kids from the local area that'll draw fans from that hometown that'll help fill your arenas more than what it's been. So I think that's a huge advantage if you can get that, if you can get those kids. Because I've heard fan bases and other schools talking about getting kids from way out of state, and when you have kids in your own backyard that you can get, or fans think that we're not getting those kids. I guarantee you, coaches have identified those kids, but for whatever reason, you present yourself to them. If they choose another place, they go to another place. But I think that's where it starts, and I agree with you. I think if you rely on the guarantee games, and if you're cutting down on some of those games, yes, then you got to come up with other ways to fill your arenas. Because at the end of the day, if we fill our arenas the way we should, then you don't have to get as many of those guarantee games. Just like in football, I think that's pretty standard. We wouldn't be playing Mississippi State if we packed Spinks Castle every home game. If Mumford was being filled every week, you wouldn't be playing La Tech and ULM and Georgia. I mean, I think that's quite common as well. I think we all agree to that. So I think there's a lot of little things that are kind of scattered that if you put those things together, you have a big thing. And I think that's kind of where we are right now. I think in terms of marketing, we have a marketing and communications area here at Alcorn that promotes the brand. So I think we have to continue to do a good job with that. And I think all schools have that in some capacity. It's just a matter of continuing to come up with creative ideas to build that. Right now, are we kind of in a flatline mode? I think we are in a certain extent, and we just have to find a way to jumpstart it and get it pointed in the right direction.
I have one more comment, Brother Brown, and I'm going to be done. We all, when you look at the makeup of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, we all have some common denominators that I do not think. Well, let me just speak from a Prairie View perspective. I'm going to ask you guys this question. Is this too far-fetched that in the fall season, in the winter season, in the spring season, I'll ask, do you guys, athletic departments, take advantage of local media, i.e. newspapers, radio, or whatever? And I'm not talking about the week of a game, but just highlight and schedule your entire fall season package in the local newspaper. What's wrong with buying a full-page ad in the local papers to highlight your entire athletic department, not just the football department, but the football schedule, volleyball schedule, soccer schedule, cross-country events? How much is that going to cut into your budget of just getting that out there? Because people still save newspaper clippings, and maybe that's too outdated and old-fashioned. But it's something that people can put in their hands. It's not a digital presentation, but they get it and they can put their hands on it and put it on their refrigerators even to have a local interest. Oh, yeah, Alcorn's playing this week. Southern Prairie View's playing this week. What's wrong with that?
Well, I know Southern University has done that in the local paper, the week of different sporting events. The Coach Banks also has a television program that highlights the athletic department where the coaches come on, and not just football, baseball, and basketball, but all the other spring sports and what have you. And they, of course, they use Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook because, that part, you didn't have that 20 years ago, but now you have it. But I know Southern has done that, and of course they utilize the school newspaper, the Southern University Digest. Now, other ways I like for them to use some other media as well. Yeah, they should. But can't speak for the athletic department, but that's kind of what they've been doing.
Yeah, and I think at Alcorn, you talk about social media, and I know in our local area, you have 3 papers. You have the Vicksburg Post, Natchez Democrat, and the Clarion Ledger. I do know for a fact that Vicksburg and Natchez local papers, the 2 towns closest to the university, they are more in line with the university in getting things out there. Both those newspapers are online, and I think the fact that I know there's some people that are still picking up a newspaper and buying newspapers today, but newspapers have cut circulation. I think in Vicksburg and Natchez, those papers are owned by the same company now, and they're only coming out with papers 3 days a week. And I know in New Orleans and in some of the bigger markets, you're seeing that. You're seeing the reduction of print media as we know it. Now, can we, the days that they do print, can we put our schedules out there? Sure we can. I mean, that's all it is a phone call and paying the fee to put our schedules on in the paper. And so we can do that part of it, and they'll print that, and our fans will get that. So I agree with that aspect of it. But I think the whole media landscape is changing now in terms of coverage, in terms of getting the word out. It's it's social media now, and it's social media heavy. Even watching TV on your phone through social media, that's changed as compared to looking at it on television. We need to get more coverage, and that's been an age-old argument. And I do think we're getting more coverage. I know here, Channel 12, Channel 3, here in Jackson, and Channel 16, by the success of our football program. I mean, tomorrow we're going to have a championship parade in Vicksburg. That's going to be well covered. There's over 30 floats in this parade. What started out is, just kind of a parade. You got over 30 different floats that are going to be a part of this championship parade in Vicksburg tomorrow. That's going to give the university the exposure, athletics, football, the whole 9 yards. I think that will be a big help as well. So I think it's in drips and drabs. We've been talking about it forever, but I do think with the way the new age media and social media is going to put more out there, we hope, and I think our SID is doing it. I do my part. Carlos, you do your part. Dr. Prince, do your part. I think folks that are in the SWAC circle are doing their part to get the word out, to make people aware of what's going on. And it's just a matter of whether or not people pay attention and people get it and pass the word on to where it could increase attendance and awareness. And I think if we continue to push it, then I think over a period of time, it will happen. It's not going to happen overnight because we have been behind the 8 ball for a long time. Are we going to catch up? At some point, I think we will be in the ball game. But, you have other schools with bigger budgets, been doing it for a longer period of time. But we're not talking about those schools. We're just talking about the SWAC. And I think all of us are kind of on a string now when it comes to that, the exposure, getting the word out about what's going on in athletics and every sport at the university. I think we're all kind of doing that now, and we're doing a better job of it. And we just have to continue to do it, continue to have the conversation, continue to find different ways, online streaming, interviews, things of that sort, just to inform people. And I think that's our job, is just to inform people, hey, we got a game, we got a volleyball game, we got a softball game, signing day's coming up. Get the word out to get people more invested in the athletic department and the university. And then I think the dollars will come from there because people are interested in those type of things.
And the bottom line, as you said, you got to spend money to make money. And with social media, if I don't follow you, if I don't know you exist, what good is a tweet?
Exactly. I agree with that. And that's why for me, for example, I put out as much as I can from my perspective. The games and the interviews and things like that. It has to start somewhere. So it starts with me on the social media end of it. And the university has a social media page. Athletics has a social media page. The individuals in athletics, the players, I think the players are more empowered now. The players are putting out tweets. The players are putting out stuff. Come out and support us. Is that the job of the SIDs and the athletic media relations director? Yeah, it is. But then you see players becoming empowered and saying, hey, we're playing so-and-so today. Come out and support. And I think those tweets get retweeted, word gets out, and then all of a sudden, you have something. So I think we're coming at this on the social media end of it from a lot of different directions. And I think that helps as well because let's face it, we're in a social media world now. Everybody's got a smartphone.
Yes.
Everybody's on Facebook. Everybody's on Twitter.
Yeah,
the old days.
Also,
we're talking about business. We're talking about business. And what's
the one good and bad about that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Now, if I'm invested, and I'm just going to use the local paper or local radio station, but if I'm invested in the local paper, whether it's once a week, 3 times a month, I don't care how often the circulation is, if the circulation is cut down. What are you doing? You are now introducing your product by taking an ad in that paper with other businesses that take ads in that paper. If they'll spend money in that paper, whether the circulation is dying or not, don't you think they might be interested if someone approaches them about supporting the local university athletic program? That's common sense.
I agree with that, and we are doing some of that. I do know that some of our former coaches in the other sports have reached out to those local papers and communities because they live in those communities and they have relationships in those communities. And I think that's the other part too. If you have relationships in those communities with the newspaper, the publisher, the reporter, and the businesses, I think you got something. Our former tennis coach did that. So we have to continue to do that in other sports as well if we can. And I do think that's a good foundation to build those relationships to help build something to bring those dollars in. I totally agree with that.
And finally, 2 and 10 won't get them in. If you're in basketball and you just have to suffer with it, they're going to do what they're going to do, but you can still stand up and say, look, I don't like this. How can I help? How can we improve and have some balance? I'm going to always say balance to the issues. You got to have it. But the listener kind of got this conversation going about attendance, and there are theories out there. There are opinions on why. But at the end of the day,
well, here's another thought to Carlos. I know it's kind of running out of time, but
because we're right at the end.
Me and Emmanuel Barnes are talking about this, and he believes, and I thought about it. Football, because we talk about football from August through Christmas with the Celebration Bowl, takes a lot of oxygen out of basketball. And, we can agree or disagree with that, but, we talk about football all the time, all year. We kind of get into basketball, we get a big win in non-conference, we talk about that, but then we don't really until conference play starts, and we're really in it now. Now the college football season is officially over. So, maybe football does take a lot of the attention, but how do you split that with football and then basketball as well to kind of divert that energy? That's another point.
Yeah, and there's a segment of fans that like football and they don't care about basketball, but they like baseball.
Yeah. And I think that's a product of winning, too, because we know in baseball, we've seen these upsets happen. Southern beat LSU in baseball last year. You see a lot more of those non-conference upsets in baseball than you do basketball. I mean, that's a tough statement to make, but it's just a fact. Baseball is a little bit more of an equalizer. And we've seen that where teams in this league have beaten some quality teams in the SEC and Big 12 that are known for good baseball programs. And that makes it for a good conference season. It makes it for an exciting tournament. I mean, look at what Southern did this year in baseball. Who would have thought that? So, I mean, I kind of agree with the commissioner in the sense when he says it's a byproduct of winning. Southern won some big games out of conference. They won the SWAC. And they had Mississippi State on the ropes in the regional. I mean, with transitioning into baseball, but it's a byproduct of winning. So I think if we do that in other sports, I think it'll draw the same type of magnet, same type of attention.
Well, we'll have to end it on that note. We want to thank Charles Edmond, Dr. Michael Prince, Coach Van Pettaway on today's show. Make sure you tune in every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to 12 noon Central Standard Time for the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Enjoy your weekend, folks, the rest of it. And until next Saturday at 10 a.m., as always, peace and God bless.